When you think of Antarctica, what comes to mind? Probably this vast, silent continent of ice at the bottom of the world. We've been taught to see it as a place of peace, a sanctuary for science, totally cut off from all the chaos of global politics. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that silence is actually hiding something big? Right, let's pull on that exact thread. The author Edward H. Whitmore says our cozy image of Antarctica isn't just a little bit off. He calls it a carefully maintained veil, basically a smokescreen, put there on purpose to hide a quiet but intense struggle for power. For decades, this has been the official story, right? We've all seen the nature documentaries. They frame Antarctica as this untouched wilderness, a shared treasure where the only goal is scientific discovery. But as you're about to see, there is a completely different picture hiding just beneath the surface. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover. Welcome to Strategic Labs. Here we love digging into these kinds of illusions. And today we're tackling the myth of the empty continent. So let's ask the question, what if this whole story of a desolate, apolitical wasteland is really just a cover for one of the biggest geopolitical games of our time? Well, the first crack in the myth is a big one. Antarctica is not empty, and it's definitely not unclaimed. Not even close. See, long before any treaty was signed, nations were already out there, literally drawing lines on the ice, staking their ground based on things like exploration, who was closest, and good old-fashioned imperial ambition. And this chart really puts it into perspective. Just look at the scale of this. We're not talking about a few little outposts here. A whopping 7 nations, that's Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway, and the UK, have all laid formal claims to huge chunks of the continent. It's created this complex, frozen patchwork of who claims what, and it proves this was never a blank slate. It's a map of frozen, but you better believe very active national interests. So how does all this actually play out on the ice? I mean, these claims aren't just lines on a map. They create real zones of quiet but intense competition. And you see this most clearly on the Antarctic Peninsula. It's the easiest part to get to, which of course makes it the most desirable piece of real estate down there. And this is where it gets really complicated. Check this out. The United Kingdom, Argentina, and Chile all have claims that stack right on top of each other. The British claim, for example, overlaps with Argentina's claim and Chile's claim. It's this bizarre geopolitical triangle where 3 different countries insist they own the exact same piece of ice. They even have bases just miles apart from each other, a constant, silent way of saying, we're here, this is ours. Okay, so with all these competing claims, you have to wonder, how has this not exploded into open conflict? Well, the answer is the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. But here's the key. We have to stop thinking of it as just a simple peace treaty. It's way more like a rule book for a very, very high-stakes game. The one word you absolutely have to understand in this treaty is freezes. It didn't get rid of any of those sovereignty disputes we just looked at. It didn't solve a thing. It simply put them on ice, you could say. It banned any new claims, banned any military activity, and then said the continent was open for science. It basically created a very carefully managed stalemate. And this right here is the treaty's great paradox. On paper, its goal is a peaceful scientific preserve. But in reality, what it created is a space for managed competition. The treaty doesn't get rid of national ambitions, it just reroutes them. You can't send in the troops, but a subtle fight for influence and strategic position, all played under the respectable banner of science? Oh yeah, that is very much in the game. And here's the playbook. A country can't just plant its flag and claim land anymore. But what it can do is build a scientific base. So first, you set up a research outpost. Then you turn it into permanent year-round infrastructure. Step 3, you bring in technology that, surprise, surprise, has both scientific and military or intelligence uses. And suddenly, without breaking any rules, you're projecting real influence, establishing a permanent presence and a form of control, all without ever saying the word sovereignty. These so-called science bases are the real chess pieces on the board. An airstrip built for scientist supplies can just as easily land a military transport plane. A giant satellite dish pointed at the sky to collect climate data can also be used to intercept communications. These are perfectly legal dual-use assets, hiding a quiet strategic game in plain sight. And hey, if you find this breakdown of hidden strategies valuable, now is the perfect time to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone who still thinks Antarctica is just for penguins. Now, this game is getting even more complicated because of new, powerful players who aren't tied to any of those old historical claims. We call them strategic non-claimants. Think of them as nations that don't have a slice of the pie yet, but have big plans for the future. And two of them, China and Russia, are moving fast to reshape the entire continent's destiny. So you've basically got this fundamental split. The original 7 claimant countries, they're mostly playing defense, trying to preserve their historic status. But these strategic non-claimants, especially China and Russia, are playing a totally different game. They're not trying to maintain the status quo. They're busy setting up new strategic footholds, positioning themselves for a future where the treaty's rules might not apply anymore. China's approach has been incredibly methodical and, frankly, aggressive. They're rapidly building new bases, like their Kunlun station, which sits right at the continent's highest point. They're pouring money into new icebreakers and airfields and deploying really sophisticated dual-use check. And they're not shy about it. Beijing openly frames all this as part of a polar Silk Road, directly linking its Antarctic presence to its global strategic goals. It's like a southern bookend to their massive Belt and Road initiative. Russia's strategy, on the other hand, is all about strategic continuity. They're holding onto their huge network of old Soviet-era stations, like the legendary Vostok base, and they're modernizing them to make sure their presence is never broken. By leaning on their deep history and unmatched expertise in polar operations, Moscow is making sure it stays a key player, holding onto its influence and keeping all of its future options wide open. So where does all this leave us? You've got this silent competition, the clever use of science, the rise of these new ambitious powers. It all points to a continent that is anything but stable. Antarctica is a frontier, and right now, it feels like it's poised on a knife's edge. So what's the one big takeaway here? It's time to completely throw out the old myth. Antarctica is not some empty, pristine wilderness. It's a dynamic, complex, and deeply contested geopolitical arena, a place where science bases are really strategic outposts, and science itself has become the new currency of power. And that leaves us with the billion-dollar question. As the ice continues to melt, potentially revealing new resources and opening up new shipping routes, the stakes are only going to get higher. So will the delicate balance of this 60-year-old treaty actually hold? Or is this silent competition about to get very, very loud? What do you think is the biggest threat to the treaty's future? Leave your comment below. And if you want to dive even deeper into this whole topic, the purchase link for Edward H. Whitmore's book that inspired this explainer is right there for you in the description.